So we added 8 to both sides, and again, just like I said, if as long as the variable's on the left-hand side, the inequality will point in the direction that you need to graph. So we have to make our graphs. You guys, most of the time the number line's going to be made for you, but right now, if you need to make a number line. So we're going to put 18 in the middle, because you always put this number in the middle, because it gives you some leeway in which direction to graph. So after you make your number line, the next thing you have to decide is if the circle is going to be empty or full. And the line tells you, the line underneath it tells you that it needs to be full. So that means we're going to put a full circle on 18. Now, in our answer, do we want answers that are less than 18? So do we want numbers that are less than 18, or do we want numbers that are greater than 18? What does that mean?
Less than.
Less than, and it's because it's pointing towards the left-hand side. We're going to shade here. And you guys, when you shade, make sure you shade in that arrow, because what this means is any number that is 18 or lower, will make that inequality true. Okay? So we got P minus 2. And you guys, don't forget that every time with these that you're going to have to make a number line because, okay, so what are we going to do? Remember, anytime you solve something, you always want the variable to be by itself. So what am I going to move? The P, the 2, or the 11? You don't have to move the P unless it's on another side. So we're going to leave the P. So what's next to the P? 2. So we're going to add the 2 to both sides. If you can avoid moving the variable, try to do that, okay? Remember, they're opposites, so they cancel out, and then you're left with P is greater than 13. We're going to put 13 in the middle and then make our number line. Okay, so I just took this answer and I put it in the middle, okay? Always just put your answer right in the middle, and then you put a couple numbers on either side of it. Now, here's my question. Is it going to be a full circle or an empty circle?
Empty.
It's empty because it looks like this, right? So it's empty.
And it's come to the right.
And we want numbers that are greater than 13, so we're going to go this way. What that means is any of these numbers, anything that is greater than 13 will make this answer true. So if you plugged in 22 in for P, you would get a true statement. Because remember, you guys, in an inequality, you have more than one answer. That's why it's an inequality. It's also why we graph it. Okay? So let's do example 4. Okay. Now we want to get E by itself. So are we going to move the E, the 7, or the negative 13? The 7. It's being added now, so what are we going to do? We're going to subtract it. So when it's a one-step equation, you guys remember you always start on the side of the variable. These cancel out, and you're left with E is greater than or equal to negative 20. I heard someone say that. Now remember, when it's negative, these numbers look like they get smaller, but those are actually bigger. So remember, negative numbers are always written in a reverse order like that. So, full circle, empty circle.
Full circle,
Full circle, and it's on 20.
and it goes right.
We want numbers that are greater. And you guys remember, in negative numbers, the smaller the number, the bigger it is, because you want those numbers, you want to owe less money. Okay? So that's your answer. Now, I want to do a couple things just because I think that we should practice it. Okay? Okay, so here we go. So now we have -6 is less than p minus 2. So we're going to do it just like we did examples 1 through 4. There's just one little difference, okay? It's not a big difference. Okay, so what am I going to do? Am I going to move the -6, the p, or the -2?
-2.
Yep, we're going to move the -2. And how am I going to move it? Am I going to add it or subtract it?
Add it.
So we're going to add it to both sides. Now, remember what I said. The variable has to be on the left-hand side. The variable is not on the left-hand side. So, there's two things that you can think about. Know that I'm still going to put -4 in the middle. This would be -3. This would be -2. This is -5. And this is -6. If you don't like that and that confuses you, then let's rewrite it, okay? So that's a perfectly fine answer. But if you want your variable to always be on the left-hand side, let's rewrite it. So I'll write P here. Now see how the mouth is facing the P? You have to flip it so that it's still facing the P. Now you can put that empty circle on 4 and shade this way. You just have to remember that when you rewrite it, that the inequality also, it changes with it, okay? So you do have a couple of that where the variable's not on the right side. So that's just adding and subtracting. What I want to do now is I want to do our multiplication. Okay? So we're actually doing 2 sections today. Okay, so one thing that you need to know, and yes, I want you to write this, and I will give you time. Okay, so you guys, multiplying, dividing, positive number, the sign stays the same. So this is what I mean. So here is example 6. So when a variable is over a number, that means division. The inverse of division is what? Multiplication. So what are we going to multiply each side by? Yep. We're going to multiply each side by 6. These cancel out. X is less than or equal to 12. You put 12 in the middle. And then we're going to graph it. Full or empty circle?
Full.
Full.
And it goes to the left.
We want numbers, so we want any number that's less than. So we'll go to this way. And then, there we go. 7, 8. We have 4 more. Just because I want to make sure that I give you every type. Does that make sense? Okay. So you guys, this is a fraction, and a lot of times I know that when we see fractions, we're like, I don't want to do it, right? It's a fraction, I don't want to do it. So I want to show you the nice part. So what is the denominator of the fraction? 7. So let's multiply each side by 7. Now, are you multiplying each side by a positive number? Then you don't have to change the inequality. We'll talk about that in a second. So 7 times negative 6 is negative 42. And these 7s cancel out, and you're left with 2a. Every time you have a fraction. You guys, I'm sure that some teachers have taught you to multiply by the reciprocal. We're multiplying by the reciprocal. We're just going to do it in 2 steps. Now, what do? How do you do that one? How do you get rid of the 2? What? We move it over, but how do you move it over? Because this is multiplication, so what's the inverse of multiplication? So we're going to divide each side by 2. And remember, that number right there is positive. So you're going to have to ask yourself, what did I just divide by? I divided by 2. It's positive, so I would leave it, and then I would graph. Negative 21 goes in the middle. In your notes, you guys, I'm having you graph them, but when you get to the 1 page, you're not going to have to graph them. Okay, open, so full or empty circle? Empty. And do I want numbers that are greater than or less than 21? What? But let's rewrite it. A is less than 21, so we want to go this way. So if you need to, go ahead and rewrite that number. Okay, so the difference between this one now is that we're multiplying or dividing by a negative number, and we have to flip the inequality. So it's the number that you're multiplying by, not on either side, but the number that you're multiplying by or dividing by. So here we go. What example are we on? Example 8. You guys, I'm trying to give you an example of each type of problem, okay? We'll do this fraction one. Okay, you guys. So, I got negative 5/9 r is less than 25. How many negative signs do you see? 1. That means you either need to make the 5 negative or the 9 negative. You're not making them both negative. You make one negative, okay? So, I like to get rid of the I like to remember, like on the last example we did, right? We multiplied each side by the denominator. So let's multiply each side by the denominator. And let's take the negative with it, okay? So we're going to multiply each side by -9. When you multiply each side by -9, what happens is, what?
Never mind.
What happens is this negative, like this and this cancels out, and what are you left with? 5r. Now, it says we multiplied by a negative number, so what do we have to do the inequality sign? We flip it, so it was less than, now it is greater than. And now we have to do 25 times -9, which I believe is, okay, so this becomes -225. And now how do we get rid of the 5? Divide it by 5. And now are we dividing by a positive number or a negative number? 5 is what type of number? Positive, so everything is going to stay the same. And I am not going to make you graph this one. So we'll be done with that. And then that's our final answer. So someone give me a possible answer. What's a possible answer that would make this true?
-45 is greater than or equal to r.
Okay, but give me a number. Just a number that would make this true.
46, -46.
Go lower than 40.
No, sorry, -44.
-44. Someone else give me another number that would make this true. What's a possible solution to this? So -44. What's another number that's less than -44? What's another number that's greater than -45? How about 10? Is 10 greater than -45? So 10 is the solution. Someone else give me another number that's a solution to this problem. So I've got -44 and I gave you 10. So what's another one? 1. What's another one? Jimmy? 12, right? Is that what you said, 12? 12. Yep. Any number that's greater than that was the solution, okay? We have one more that I want to do. Okay. What do we do? How do we solve this? How do you get rid of the -15? What? Divide by -15. So it says if I divide by a negative number, did I divide by a negative number? I did. So that means the inequality flips because the number that I divided by was negative. And -105 divided by -15 is +7. You guys, it doesn't matter if it's less than or equal to or just less than. if you divide, if you write it like that, you're dividing by a negative number, you switch the sign. If you multiply something by a negative, you flip the sign, okay? There's two things that I just want to write. They're not going to take very long. But if you see the word at least, that means greater than or equal to. So if you see, it's going to cost you at least $20, right? It's going to cost you $20 or more when it says at least, okay? If you see the words at most, that means less than or equal to. Have your parents ever said that you can have some people over? You can have at most 5 people over. That means you can't have more than 5 people. It means you can have up to 5 people. So at least, so if you ever go to get something, or you've ever heard your parents talking about car repairs or something like that, oh my gosh, that's going to cost me at least $200. That means that's the minimum, right? Have you ever heard your parents talk about car repairs? Or something repaired in the house, and that's going to cost at least this much money? That means that's the least amount it's going to cost you. It could cost you more. At most, and they're always talking, well, this room holds at most 10 people. That means that this room can only hold at most 10 people, so you can't go over 10 people. Okay, so get out your workbooks for me, because we're going to